Welcome to another biblically based look into today's news from Christian Voice New Zealand. Now here's Mike Bain.
Hi, I'm Mike Bain from Christian Voice New Zealand. Where do I begin to tell the story of how great a love can be? The sweet love story that is older than the sea. No, I'm not going to get soppy or anything like that, but there's a beautiful story to be found in the pages of the Bible which would rate greater than any rom-com movie. The story is about this landowner dude who sees a poor girl scavenging for food in his fields. Immediately he falls for her and then wants to provide for her and protect her. Now a story like this will have the hankies out, but to others they'll be incensed by the stereotypical male who thinks the woman is quite strong in the story, should be provided for because of a social demographic, and she should be protected simply because she's a woman. So here goes, deep breath. What's wrong with a man wanting to provide and protect a woman? What woman, strong or otherwise, doesn't want a man to provide and protect them? Yeah, I'll come back to that question later. So the character Ruth in this biblical story I'm talking about was married, but her husband died and she went to live somewhere else with her mother-in-law. Culturally, the man was seen as the provider and protector. And as these women had no man to do this, they were broke. There was no welfare, emergency housing, night shelters, you get the picture. In order to get food, poor people and women could go into a landowner's field and glean or collect what wasn't harvested or left over for themselves. Now it turns out that Boaz, the landowner, turned up on the day Ruth was gathering in the field, and the attraction was immediately, well, let's face it, Ruth was obviously a good-looking woman, and apparently Boaz was considered to be a bit of a catch in his day. Boaz eventually met Ruth and told her that she should feel free to glean all his fields, but this was after he had had the conversation with his workers to ensure that she was safe and left alone. You know what, that would have been in itself would have been an interesting conversation to overhear. His actions though established that he would be her provider and protector. Now, I'm not going to tell you how the story finished. You can read that for yourself. But the story raises some cultural issues that we face today. First of all, we have to establish common ground where you accept men and women are biologically different. For those of you who disagree, like I said, I'll come back to this point before I finish. But regardless of the current climate and thinking, men and women are biologically and mentally different, and I'm happy to debate that view until the cows come home. There is a thought, though, that in the world that we should treat women like men. Interestingly, we don't hear the reverse, where men should be treated like women. Although there are some men who want to be women and women want to be men, but that's altogether another rabbit hole, which I'm not going down. In 1 Peter 3, husbands are exhorted to be considerate as they live with their wives and treat them with respect. On that subject, I was brought up in a home and community where respect and decency were expected and accepted as a norm. To this day, I'll let women enter a door first, stand up and let a woman take my seat on the bus and so forth. It's an old-fashioned thing called chivalry. Yep, I do get some strange looks, especially from younger women. But while they may want to be emasculated, I want to show them honour. This is the world I was brought up in. This is what I was taught. I try to honour you, but today your reaction dishonours me. I try to grace you, and you disgrace me. Now, who's to say in 20 years' time that today's thoughts may have changed and life will be different? Like I said, it's another rabbit hole. But before the internet even existed, the women's movement tried to gain respect, which I agree some women needed. And to be honest, every person needs. But today it's morphed into just gender identity confusion in our culture, where there is no difference between men and women. Biologically, it's defining. But identity confusing is defying God's beautiful design of the two genders. Now, I have no issues with females wanting to do what was considered in the day man's work. This is what equality is, isn't it? The same point that the women's movement wanted. But it's going too far. And sportswomen agree. When we have men who identify as women competing in competitions because they're biologically different. Now it's getting further out of hand with documentation where pronouns can be used, or you can be non-specific about gender. We're now living in a culture of confusion, and the internet certainly doesn't help with all its misinformation and lobby groups using it to promote and manipulating the truth. I can say this with hand on heart. The Bible is the source of God's absolute truth. Use it to rout out all the confusion by bathing and washing with the Word of God. Set your hearts and minds on truth and stay centered in the Word of God, because God will always know what is right, what is wrong with this truth from what is false. And you know, in this beautiful story in the book of the Bible of Ruth, Boaz says, I'm going to support her. This is not like sexist, you know. The left-leaning would say, hey, look at this guy. He's like trying to support her, but she doesn't need providing or protection. You know, she's a strong woman. Okay, well, look, the beautiful story here, this is a man who wants to protect this woman, and he wants to support her. Now, along these lines, if I could just wrap up quickly, ladies, sometimes, you know, if you're married, if your husband says, hey, I don't want you driving that long distance alone, or if he says to you, I don't want you going out in the bad weather in your car, he's not trying to be controlling. He's trying to be protective. And if your family is going through a tough time and your family wants to help financially, but your husband says, oh, look, I'd rather get a second job, it's not because he doesn't appreciate the offer. He's saying it because he wants to provide. You know, maleness is no longer recognised in our culture because of the way our culture has trended. When you read the story in the Bible of this beautiful reminder of a man whose very name, Boaz, means strength, all he wanted to do was provide and protect. I said earlier I'd come back to the question of what women wouldn't want to be provided for and be protected. I think that answer has some bearing on how you view equality and the way we view ourselves. You know, we're all made in the image of God. That makes us all special. In the Genesis account, unfortunately, though, we read the story in downfall of where women first wanted equality. Like I said, men and women are biologically different. We're wired differently. That's when I watch something on YouTube, my wife loses the will to live. And if she ever wants to watch The Notebook or anything that comes close to it, mate, I'm out of here.
Thank you for watching. Help us to spread this message by sharing it within your own network. For more information, jump online to our website, christianvoicenewzealand.com.